Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I am so well. I have
Yeah?
nothing to credit, but I'm in a great place today. So let's see if we can't use that wherever we are to be with it even more intimately, with more compassion and more allowing. So I'm basically going to guide us through a reflective meditation that is the text from James Nestor's Breath book. And so to begin, of course, find your safe space, find a posture that is sustainable. In fact, I love that James spells this out. He says, there is no mention in the Yoga Sutras of moving between or even repeating poses. The Sanskrit word asana originally meant seat and posture. It referred both to the act of sitting and the material you sit on. What it specifically did not mean was to stand up and move about. The earliest yoga was a science of holding still and building prana through breathing, what we call today meditation. So let's begin our just pause practice, our meditation practice, with this centering, calming breath in a sustainable, supported seat, a posture that welcomes and invites stillness. As I share from the text, invite your imagination, your visualization as a strategy and a technique for holding this intention of just being still, giving your mind, your intellectual and your emotional brain some fodder for which to work around. But if you should fall away from listening, that's okay too. In every culture and in every medical tradition, before our common system, healing was accomplished by moving energy. The moving energy of electrons allows living things to stay alive and healthy for as long as possible. The names may have changed, prana, orenda, chi, ruah, but the principles have remained the same. Breathe, move, rest. The three rituals or disciplines of yoga that invite us to connect intimately with prana, with energy. If you were to travel back in time some 5,000 years to the borders of what is now Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northwestern India, you'd see sand, rocky mountains, dusty trees, red soil, wide open plains, the same landscape that now covers most of the Middle East. But you'd also find something else. 5 million people living in cities of baked brick tract houses, roads meticulously constructed in geometric patterns, and children playing with copper, bronze, and tin toys. Between the cul-de-sacs, you'd see public bathing pools with running water and toilets piped to complex sanitation systems. In the marketplace, you'd see tradespeople measuring goods with weights and standardized rulers, sculptors carving elaborate figures into stone, and ceramics artists throwing pots and tablets. This was the Indus-Sarasvati civilization, named after the two rivers that flowed through the valley. The Indus-Sarasvati was the largest geographically, some 300,000 square miles, and one of the most advanced of ancient human civilizations. As far as is known, the Indus Valley had no churches or temples or sacred spaces. The people who lived there produced no praying sculptures, no iconography. Palaces, castles, and imposing government buildings didn't exist. There was, perhaps, no belief in God. But the people here believed in the transformative power of breathing. A seal engraving unearthed from the civilization in the 1920s depicts a man in an unmistakable pose. He's sitting erect with his arms outstretched and hands with thumbs in front placed on his knees. His legs are crossed and the soles of his feet are joined, the toes pointing down. His belly is filled with air as he consciously inhales. Several other unearthed figures share this same posture. These artifacts are the first documented yogic postures in human history, which makes some sense. The Indus Valley was the birthplace of yoga. Things seem to be going so well in this region until around 2000, before the Common Era, when a drought hit, causing much of the population to disperse. Then Aryans from the Northwest moved in. These weren't the blonde-haired, blue-eyed soldiers of Nazi lore, but black-haired barbarians from Iran. The Aryans took the Indus-Sarasvati culture and codified it, condensed it, and rewrote it in their native language of Sanskrit. It's from these Sanskrit traditions that we get the Vedas, religious and mystical texts that contain the earliest known documentation of the word yoga. In two texts based on Vedic tradition, the Brihadaranyaka and the Chanda Yoga Upanishads are the earliest lessons of breathing and the control of prana. Over the next few thousand years, the ancient breathing methods spread throughout India, China, and beyond. By around 500 BCE, the techniques would be filtered and synthesized into the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Slow breathing, breath holding, deep breathing into the diaphragm, and extending exhalations all first appear in this ancient text. A broad interpretation of a passage from Yoga Sutra 2.51 reads, when a wave comes, it washes over you and runs up the beach. Then the wave turns around and recedes over you, going back to the ocean. This is like the breath, which exhales, transitions, inhales, transitions, and then starts the process again. Yoga practices were never designed to cure problems. They were created for healthy people to climb the next rung of potential, to give them the conscious power to heat themselves on command, expand their consciousness, control their nervous system and hearts, and live longer, more vibrant lives. This may have been the intention, and paying attention is the first order of the yoga strategy. And from that paying attention, we design and articulate actions of doing and non-doing that help us to live more intimately with compassion, with truth, and with each other, with prana herself. Traveling now to the present moment. Feel yourself rooted in these ancient truths, these artifacts, these images and writings of our ancestors. Their intention might be nuanced from your personal intention. And yet the practice serves such a broad integration for living well, living vibrantly. What is it about your current circumstances that invite you into this sense of steady study, introspection, integration, inspiration? As you are ready to return to the moment, start to open your senses, your smell, your sense of hearing and sight, and look around. We're not in the deserts. We're not in the mountains, or maybe you are. But notice your surroundings and begin again from this stillness to move into your day, to move back into whatever requires your attention, building from this foundation and holding the intimacy with prana to carry with you, knowing it's present even when we're not paying full attention to it. This is the beauty of living in union, of living yoga. Let your hands come to rest together. Bow your head. Maybe there's a blessing or a gratitude or simply an allowing of this growing and expanding relationship with prana by way of the practice of being with what is here, rooted in the story of what came before, to prepare us for those stories that are still being written. May you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. Namaste. Thank you. Comments, thoughts, observations, or questions?
An observation that in James's description of the wave washing over and receding, he left out a little detail that I think you talked about in story time, that the feeling of the sand slipping away from underneath your feet as the wave recedes can be really scary. And I think it kind of fits with this whole theme of, okay, the wave's going to come and wash away, but it's also going to take a little bit of the ground you thought was firm out under you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And especially the first time that we have that sensory awareness, right? I can remember watching my younger brother the first time he stood on the edge of the ocean and the sand pulled out from underneath him and the panic that washed over him. And then as he got familiar with it, it became almost a tickle and a play, a pleasure to feel that sand shift beneath. Now I don't know whose translation that is. He doesn't actually in the text identify who, but obviously Patanjali is not writing in English. So I don't know how much creativity in that translation, let alone the transliteration, happened, but it is a beautiful analogy and speaks to a common analogy of this union metaphor of the ocean being the oneness and the droplet of water that breaks free as our own identity and recognizing, oh, I was part of that, but look at me, I'm independent. And then the farther we get away, panic starts to wash in again and like, but I want the oneness. We want both, right? This is the Abhinavesha celebration of I am me. And then there's a hunger to reconnect, that pranic union. And when we return to the true oneness of union, that is the prana returning. If we find a false distraction, right? Something that soothes but doesn't necessarily connect all, that's the apana, a false god, a false substitute of that union. And so we watch for that. We come to the meditation so that we can balance those energies, knowing that they all come from the same beginning, which is the union itself, the oneness. Thanks for being here. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon.